Well, hello and welcome. And today we are looking at drop in oil prices and how it's going to affect the 2015 budget, indeed revenues. Well, oil prices are going down and, the average consumer is absolutely upset that, look, you get to the pump and it doesn't reflect in how much money you're paying. And we are calling. But as a state, the state should be smiling because the state is also a consumer and it goes outside and buys oil products and it's been reduced. However, as a state, we also sell oil. Now, the finance minister is saying that we're going to lose about 2.7 billion cedis because of the expected revenues from crude. He's not going to get that because of the fall in prices. Now they're going to go into the Stability Fund and dig some money out to cushion things here and cushion things there. But what is happening in the oil sector? Indeed, what percentage of our oil is ours? Is it enough for us to make all this hoo-ha, or just like every other commodity that we have, gold, you dig it out and ship it out, timber, chop it down and log it out. What are we doing? Is there any plans in the near future to add some value to whatever it is that we're shipping out so that we can stop this proverbial gorgeous back economy that we are running? My name is Nana Ansakwa, and this is PM Express. When I come, I have experts to talk to me about what's happening with oil and the energy sector. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. And we are literally looking at the implications to state as in the fall in oil prices. As a commercial producer of crude oil, we also sell oil to the outside world. And instead of, we budgeted thinking we were going to get $90 per barrel, each barrel we sell out. And then it's plummeted down to like $40. So basically 50% of what you're expecting has automatically been wiped out. Now I have with me in studio, immediate left is Kojo Poko, who's an energy expert. And then we have our own brother Kwame Jantua, who's a vice president for PR. So they deal in oil, they deal in energy. And I'm going to start with you, Kwame. At the time that we were expecting to get $90 approximately per barrel of crude, it is well publicized within your fraternity that, at the speed at which the thing was snow diving, $90 wasn't a safe pick, and that maybe we should have, underestimated it a bit rather than kept it at 90. Even though it's a very volatile market, you don't know when it's going to go up, you don't know when it's going to go down. But the trajectory then was that, look, 90 was a bit, we're overestimating. I mean, how true or how false is that?
Nana, good morning, good evening. Yeah. Good evening to my Goku and good evening to fellow Ghanaians. In order to estimate the prices, the benchmark revenue is worked out. And the benchmark revenue that is worked out on a formula. We set our benchmark price at $99 a barrel at the time, based on the formula that we used to work with. But unfortunately, the price started dropping. And hence the price started dropping. We had also forecast our budget on that benchmark revenue of $99. Hence, when that fell, we were now left with a gap as to how to fund the budget because of the drop that we weren't going to get. Hence, we're now having to go into the Stabilization Fund. Because what the Stabilization Fund says is that it's there to cushion falls in oil prices. Hence, the finance minister is now going to the Stabilization Fund. We couldn't have told whether the price was going to drop or the price was going to go up, because in the previous years, we had excess over the benchmark revenue, and hence that excess was put into the Stabilization Fund and the Heritage Fund. So that's the position we are at now.
Are you in support in going into the Heritage Fund, the Stabilization Fund, or no?
I think certain things have gone on where the Stabilization Fund is concerned. One's got to do with the capping of a certain amount of figure in the Stabilization Fund. The finance minister said 250 million. At the time of this, the Stabilization Fund was about 400 and something million. Now, he said 250 million. Instead of capping it at the top, they've capped it at the bottom and they've creamed off about $69 million out of it. Where is that money gone? Apparently, they said they were going to use it to pay debt. But if I refer to the law says you can take money out of the stabilization fund in terms of either for the consolidated fund or to pay debt, not both. But in the statement of the Minister of Finance, he said both, and the law doesn't accept both. It says or. And so that 69 million that was on there, where has that money gone? They're supposed to go to Parliament for acceptance. I'm not sure whether you have heard that that went to Parliament. So the question is, why did they not cap it and leave it at the cap, and if there was any excess above that cap, they take that money? But they capped it from the middle. So the 490, they put 250 on, and now instead of leaving it there, they took the balance out and left it that at 250. That is not what the law says. And so the question will be asked, the 69 million, where is it? And I can refer to certain parts of the law as we go along in our discussion. If we look at Section 23, which establishes the transfer into the Ghana Heritage Fund and the Stabilization Fund, it talks about building the funds in the Stabilization Fund. And it's only when there's a shortfall that you withdraw. Was there a shortfall at the time the minister was capping? And I don't think at the time the cap was in, there was a shortfall. So why did they cap and why did they take money at that particular moment in time? Maybe if the minister was here, they might be able, to answer that question. Because we at PIAC have asked that question and we haven't got any answer for it at the present moment.
Well, let me let viewers know that, Mona Kote was meant to join us via phone, but she's not available now, so we'll ask a lot of questions on the show and then we'll get them to join later. But is it not amazing that, as a state, has got, this cushioning thing, and then the individuals, Kojo, we don't seem to have any, cushioning, as we go to the pump, regardless of how much fuel is coming down. Because I asked this question is that, what is the equilibrium? There should be a bar where you are able to recover how much, debt you have and also keep businesses running. Because I can imagine how some companies are literally just working to keep the generator on.
Yes, I have said this several times on your platform that I think NPA and Honorable Mr. Saga is not being fair to Ghanaians. You're looking at a time when the crude oil was about $140. Now, as at today's trading, is between $42. So practically about $100 has gone off the international crude price. And Ghanaians have only been given 10% of their export. You ask yourself, why is that? It's just because they have no regard for you and I. It's not fair that we are still paying the prices that when crude was $140 and now that crude is $42, we've only been giving 10% off. Today, not only do you have to drive a vehicle to buy fuel, the gen sets are running everywhere. The hairdresser, the barber, the watch seller, if he has a refrigerator and he wants to sell cold water, would have to probably have a small generator. So everybody is now having to buy fuel. So if there was sensitivity on the part of government, this would have been the best time to at least give, some of us have been saying, look, give us at least 20% reduction. If you are saying that you have under recoveries that you have to deal with, there is still enough around, there's enough cake on the table to give Ghanaians some leave and then use part of that money to basically be paying. In the US, as at last month, when I last checked, they've gotten 40% reduction and with them, it's like what we intended to do, which is the liberalization of the formula. What your crude or your ex-refinery is, you plug it into the formula and you get your ex-pump. Because MPA now came in to intervene, they've now hijacked that formula and they don't want to basically let go. The BDCs are now coming out to say that, look, they have FX under recoveries and FS losses. and they need that recovered. And they are saying that in the past 2 years, that's about $600 million. Now, from the statement read by the Honorable Finance Minister, government is no longer going to support the capping of the FX now. So FX losses have to be borne by the BDCs. We are making our own problems. Okay, I don't see how government, in one hand, will be seen as doing one thing and causing problems for himself. You are now capping the dollar rate and causing $600 million in 2 years, and now the BDCs are asking you to pay for that, and you are saying you're not going to pay. Ghanaians, it's our money. We should at least be paying 11 Ghana cedis per gallon. At least 11 Ghana cedis per gallon. Because right now, what is happening is that the BDCs are the one getting richer. Because bear in mind, government does not import fuel. It's the BDCs that import the fuel. So when they import the fuel, they basically have what the margin is. The MPA now has to go back to the BDCs and reconcile and say, look, I allowed you to charge more than what you're supposed to charge, so give me back the money. And in the past, we've known what has happened with the BDCs and MPA in terms of reconciliation. So to me, I don't think MPA, especially Honorable Asaga, is being fair to Ghanaians.
See, I'm just taking your figures, from 140 down to 40. Clearly, there should be enough there not to touch the stabilization.
Let's have some education. Mm-hmm. We're talking about upstream, and we're talking about downstream. Mm-hmm. The upstream is the selling of crude. Yeah. What we're talking about, my stabilization fund and all that. And the downstream is refined petroleum products. Now, Ghana is an exporter of upstream crude. We are losing on upstream crude because of the fall in prices. Where downstream is concerned, because the crude oil is sent to the refinery to refine, they are buying it cheaper. And that is how that fall affects prices in terms of the BDCs bringing in the refined petroleum products to use in our cars and our generators. Now, where MPA is concerned, they calculate a certain percentage above the world market price for the BDCs to be able to make profit. Because the BDCs buy the refined products in foreign exchange, LCs. And so there's a foreign exchange differential which needs to be paid for. My issue is that, okay, if MPA are saying that we cannot give discounts to customers, how long will it take for you to be able to pay what is owed the BDCs? 1. 2, isn't it incumbent on the MPA to tell us how that debt was created so that everybody is aware and make sure that next time round, everybody would make sure that we don't get into that debt anymore. However, government is telling us that, yes, we'll be able to pay the BDCs within a certain duration of time. However, even if we finish paying them, we're not going to be able to give the kind of discounts we need to give. And I think, as Kwabena said, it isn't right. Because as Dumso has come, look, in my office, the owner, he buys nearly 1,000 cedis worth of fuel every day just to keep the lights on in the office complex. Is that fair on him? It's not fair on him. It's not fair on him. And really and truly, if Ghana wasn't exporting oil and we were just bringing in refined products, would we be complaining at all? We won't, because we are not part of the upstream. Ours is just downstream. So we need to find an equilibrium. We need to be able to ease the pressure on Ghana, especially with Dumso now coming in. And at the present moment, when the president talks about Dumso, it's not an immediate resolution, it's medium to long term. So nobody knows when Dumso is going to end. And as it gets serious, as it gets deeper into it, when I was walking here today, I looked at your generator out there. The whole place is dark. And I was saying to myself, how much does Joy FM and Multi TV buy in terms of keeping this generator on? If that generator is supposed to move, is supposed to generate power for 24 hours. And this is where the problem lies.
80,000 cities a month.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, which can make you unemployed. Because after a while, if the owners of this place realize that it's eating into their profits, definitely.
You keep the business and kick you out.
Yes, keep this and kick you out. So it is something we should really look at.
Is it that the state is not aware of this dire situation? Because it's frightening.
I will put the blame squarely on the legislator, the parliamentarians. I think in our democracy, the arm of government that is letting you and I down are the parliamentarians. If I would say this again, and I've said it several places, I think they are the ones causing financial loss to the state. What are parliamentarians doing for Ghanaians, really? What are they doing? Look, we have a situation where the parliamentarians are just there as a yes function of the executive. I have never seen Parliament challenging the executive in this Fourth Republic. It hasn't happened.
Well, it's only at every given time, it will be the opposition that will challenge, and we have a system where the opposition will always be the minority.
It shouldn't be. They are not there to be the extension of executive. Look, they have subcommittees. The same way that PAC, you will all see it on TV, PAC will call the various ministers and the agencies and grill them. The same way that parliamentarians, the subcommittee, should call Mr. Asaga and grill him. When have they done that?
Are they not an extension of the executive? They are the extension of the executive.
But that's what I'm saying, that if they are going to be, then there's no point having them.
When the Constitution allows the president to take a certain quantity of parliamentarians to become ministers, they become an extension. There's no independence of
cabinet, they make the decision, come and sit down and vote for it.
And the whip would whip them all into line when it comes to voting. And that system should stop. The parliamentarians should be independent so that they can make independent decisions. Either, if they can't do that, then let's go back to the Westminster system. Yeah. Let's go back to the Westminster system.
Because you and I, whatever we say, I mean, with the radio, I've stopped listening to the radio in the morning. Because you can call in and say whatever you want to say. This program, we will dissect, we will analyze, we will make suggestions. It falls on deaf ears. Why? Because there is no bite. Okay, you and I don't have a bite. Parliament has a bite. Parliament can sanction. But if they are not doing the work they're supposed to do, and that is why they are our representatives. And I don't think Ghanaians understand the democracy the way some of us do. You call your representative, your MP, to voice your opinion. He is supposed to carry your voice to the parliament to make sure some of these things are done. So we will forever be in the doldrums that we are because of the insensitivity of government, and there's no checks and balances.
You're going to call honorable? Hey, aren't you pushing it too far?
There are capacity gaps. There are capacity gaps within parliament. The capacity gaps within a lot of the members of the committees.
But you raised a very important point that, maybe 5 years ago we didn't have oil to export or something. And so whether oil prices went up or down, we carried along. So why are we acting as if, our whole lifeline depended on this fall and that revenue? And it's as if we've put a lot of hope in it.
It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Because the way we are heading, if the minister can go to parliament and say because there's a drop in the oil prices, they're going to review the budget, it is dangerous. We are heading for the resource curse. Look, one of the major things that would solve refined oil situation, petroleum price situation, is TOR. It's TOR. But we've played politics with TOR so much so that at the present moment, TOR can't do anything. What do you think if our section of the oil, a certain percentage of that was given to TOR to refine for Ghanaians? Would we be going through the challenges we're going through with BDCs? By now, successive governments should have built 2, 3, 4, 5 refineries all around the country. And now that we are producing oil, and let's face it, I keep saying we don't have an oil industry. We have an oil field in the Jubilee field. When you look at the activity map, when all the licenses that have been given out, everybody is producing, then you know that we have an oil industry. We are gradually, picking up into an oil industry. At the present moment, it's only the Jubilee field that is producing. that percentage of GMPC's take, at least some should be given to TOR. TOR is very strategic.
Is he allowed? Could that have been put in the contract to say, listen, I'll take my share in the crude, give it to me?
It is GMPC. GMPC has a certain percentage of the crude.
So can you take that in crude rather than the money that we are taking now?
Yes, you can take it in crude.
Because I've asked this question
You
several
can take
times.
it in crude.
Yes, you can take it in
because GMPC lifts also.
Yes. You can take it
GMPC
in
lifts.
crude.
So, you know, the basic challenge we have is lack of planning.
Kwame, let me get this thing clear, because because I am under the impression that maybe we are not allowed to get our share. That's why we take it in money. And if we are taking it in money, I mean, you guys should help me. Are we taking, because I know maybe a barrel of crude could give you, let's say, maybe 40 gallons of, maybe 19 gallons of petrol, X amount of diesel for a barrel of crude. Are we taking it, assuming that they've refined it, or are we just taking $40?
No,
we're taking the $40.
$40.
We're taking the cost of the crude.
Cost of the crude.
Because you see, initially, let me give you what GMPC was doing in 2009, 2010. GMPC were bringing in crude oil to give it to TOR, for TOR to refine, and GMPC was selling the refined product. That was an activity that GMPC was doing sometime in 2009. Okay, I don't know when they stopped or if they stopped, but I know for a fact that GMPC were bringing in crude oil, and when the Sahara arrangement was stopped in 2009, GMPC was the one that took over the role of bringing in crude oil for TOR. And when TOR refines it, it's GMPC that sells. So the BDCs were buying refined products from GMPC. So there's nothing that stopped GMPC from lifting or taking their share of the Jubilee to basically give it to TOR. You know, let me go on and expand on this. You see, like my brother said, we don't have an oil industry. Look, Oranto, recently read in the news, they've given up the block that they took because you see, offshore Ghana, I'm probably one of the few Ghanaians that went to GMPC in 2001 when GMPC was not active, the activity was low. So they would talk to you. We brought geophysicists and we brought geologists to GMPC, and we spent weeks there. I'm not a technical person, but the geophysicists and the geologists that we went there with, they will explain to you, because as an investor, I wanted to know what they were looking at. Look, from east to west, we are not that prolific as an offshore country. We would get some reserves, be it in the Cape 3 Point and maybe some in the Salt Pond area, maybe the Keta Basin might have something, but we're not going to be like Nigeria. We're not even going to be like Ivory Coast. We are going to have something that will last us a lifespan. But what do we do with the money going into GMPC? GMPC is not even investing the money in exploration. 3D seismic. The Volta Basin has been a political football. Companies have come in to propose seismic, to do 2D seismic in the Volta Basin. And they are proposing to spend their own money.
That's Voltaire.
That's the Voltairean Basin.
Onshore.
Onshore. The Volta Basin, onshore. Instead of GMPC spend their money in sponsoring Blackstar, which I don't see the point. They should use that money to go and do the 2D on the Voltairean Basin onshore. And then what they do a spec survey. The spec survey is just certain interval, not as detailed. You license it. When I come and I want to look at the area, those are the data that I look at. If I like the area, then I buy the data from you. So the money you spend in doing that survey, you actually get it back from selling the data. GMPC as of today is not even doing that. So the point is that we are not even advancing the exploration or going deep offshore, okay, to now say, look at Sao Tome. Sao Tome have a lot of resources deep offshore. Maybe in Ghana, we have a lot of resources deep offshore. So we should be spending the money being given to GMPC to do some of these things. And as I speak to you now, I don't think that is being done, okay?
From what I know, GMPC is gathering itself to be an NOC, a national oil company. And GMPC are looking at the present moment not to go into offshore production, but to do what they are doing now with the other companies. However, they are looking seriously in the next 2 to 3 years to start onshore production. Now, that is where the challenge is. Because where onshore production is concerned, that is where local content comes into real play in terms of they are displacing people, in terms of if you have a piece of land where there's gold, there's diamond, and there's oil, which one do you take? In terms of agriculture, if you have huge agricultural farms in the Afram Plains and there's oil there too, what happens? The EMP law that is coming, from what I have read, I don't see any reflection where onshore is concerned. GNPC have gone for 700 million loan. The 700 million they've gone for is for them to be able to, in the future, build capacity and also try and be an NOC to do even shallow water exploration. It isn't easy to be an NOC. The Talos, Cosmos wasn't an NOC. Cosmos was the kind of company that comes, finds the oil, sells it, and then moves off. The only reason why Cosmos has stayed like a Talo is because of Ghana. Because Ghana wasn't prepared for them to sell it to ExxonMobil. And so they have been forced to become a supplier and producer of oil. For me, I believe that in GNPC being an NOC, it's a good thing. However, the right thing should be put in place so that it is transparent. The oil industry is such that the amounts of money that come in so fast and so quickly, if you don't police it properly, my people, the politicians, will play games with it. They'll play games with it. So the accountability actors that are within the governance of the oil industry should be on their toes. And who are these accountability actors? PIAC is one of them. Parliament, the media have a huge role to play. The CSOs have a huge role to play. And in all these accountability actors, if they are going to work very well, the capacities that they need to build to be able to do that need to be taken care of. At the present moment, when you look at the local content bill, the local content bill is geared towards equity partnerships, where companies can go into the oil industry and they would partner some of these companies. But do the companies have the capacity, the wherewithal to do that? When you look at it now, it's not for skill building, as the Norwegians did. You know, the Norwegians, they had a thriving fishing industry. So they had the skills there, and they built on those skills. So their local content is geared towards building skills and employing people. Ours isn't that. Ours, we are hoping that is the companies that would be able to build the skills and employ Ghanaians in there.
Let me take a break here and then we'll come back. When I come back, I just want to find out, because I know that there's still, oil blocks being sold and stuff. But I've always said this, and, I was scared, but I said that any country that sells natural resources and takes its share in money in the raw state, those who signed it have to really, really be re-examined and examined again. I'm coming straight back. Well, thank you very much for staying. And, we're talking about drop in oil revenues and how it's affecting us. And we're going to change the conversation a bit. But before we go, I just want to find out, because we're still selling of oil blocks. Are we still selling an assumption that when they find oil, whatever time they do, they will give us our share, in money rather than in crude?
We don't sell oil blocks. What we do is that we give the blocks out on a 7-year exploration lease. Okay, the 7-year exploration lease, they bear, the investor or the company who is the exploration company bear the cost of exploration. Because they bear the cost of exploration, you have to now allow them, if they do find crude, they do find any hydrocarbons, you have to allow them to recover the investment. It's only fair. Yes. So what happens is that there's a formula that says that, okay, once you are exploring, during the 7 years exploration period, you will pay surface rental fees. You will pay a certain amount to GNPC. There's a fee you pay to GNPC, which is called the training fees, and you pay your royalties. So during your 7 years, those are the things you pay. If you do find crude, okay, then you come in and then you negotiate a production agreement. And in that production agreement, you will now have a certain percentage that will come to the government. People have given the Kufuor administration a bash on the agreement they signed back 10 times. The reason I sympathize with that position, because Ghana was not a destination that people will come to I remember we going to Houston in 2003, and I brought out my card as an oil company from Ghana, and they laughed. Oh, Ghana, what? Oh, do you guys have crude? Because in 2003, we didn't have crude. Crude came in 2007. So when you're asking companies like Cosmos, 2007 was the discovery.
Was a discovery.
Yes,
Yeah.
the production was 2010,
Yeah.
but the discovery was around February 2007.
Yeah.
That was the discovery. So basically, before the discovery, okay, would you believe that that very block where they made a discovery, there was a company there called Dana Petroleum was in that block. They left. They actually gave up the block and left. And Tullow them found the oil in that block. So it tells you that it is not a clear science. So to entice companies to come into Ghana and invest their money, you have to give a bit more carrot than more stick. Now that we've established that we have the oil, then we can give a bit more stick than carrot. So I can understand how some of the term people will frown on it, that look, it was a bit too generous towards the investor then. But then if they didn't do that, nobody would have risked the money that they risked. Because bear in mind, you spend about $800 million to drill a well, and you find water, and you've basically lost that money. So we don't sell the blocks. What we do is that you give them an exploration period.
My point is, after we find everything, you've gone through your 7 years, we've agreed that you give me X percentage of whatever you find.
Right.
Why are we taking the X in the crude, money?
Cash.
In
That
cash?
is something that you have to ask GMPC why they do that. Like I said,
can
if
never
they,
get my head
no,
around.
but the point is, they could refine it in GMPC if they want to take the crude, but they decide to take the cash. I don't know why.
But GMPC lifts, and once they lift, they have companies that sell on GMPC's behalf, and they earn money out of it.
So why don't we lift it and sell it?
Yes, that is what we're doing.
We lift and sell
We
it,
lift
but
and
not to
sell
Ghana.
it.
Not
to
all.
Ghana.
We lift and sell it to the outside country.
the outside-
So we lift from the Jubilee field.
The Jubilee
Yes.
field, yes.
All the
But we don't refine it.
All the partners in the Jubilee field have times they lift.
Yeah.
Cosmos has its time they lift, Tullow and GMPC. What we're not doing is that we are not
Bringing it to
taking
Tema.
a percentage of that oil to Tema to refine for Ghanaians. That's what we're not
And that's
doing.
what I'm worried about.
Yes.
But we're not doing that.
But how can we do it when Tor is what it is today? Politicians have played politics with Tor all through.
Because let me move it a bit. You see, there isn't any resource that we haven't been blessed with. Gold, timber, cocoa, vegetation. We have the sea, everything. We are not an oil producing country as you're talking about, but we're talking about oil.
We're not an oil producing country.
Well, I mean, we're not the big boys. I mean,
Yes.
if you talk about the Libyas, the
Whatever
Saudi,
the case
or
is.
even Nigeria, as you mentioned.
Whatever the case is, we are now an oil producing country. We
But-
are earning money.
But aren't we taking our eye off the obvious ball?
We have.
Yes.
And as I mentioned earlier, you go to Kumasi and look at the sawmills. All the sawmills are dead in Kumasi. The timber industry is gone, and I don't know why we have killed one big industry like timber. Even if we don't want
Because
to...
they wanna reforest.
Well, they were, but you see, the rate at which they were falling the trees were not catching up with afforestation. But you look at, trees will take you 10 years. There are timber in Ghana. Some of the reserves have been going back, and you can imagine my grandfather, the Kufuors, and they've had concessions, and those concessions were cut 30 years ago. Those afforestation has taken place, and those trees has grown back. So the trees are there. The problem is that the government is not keeping an eye on the industry. It's putting more taxes. It's making it difficult for the survival of the timber industry. Now imagine Joy FM is doing $80,000, so 80,000 Ghana cedis a month for generator. Guess how much a sawmill in Kumasi will be doing with Dumso? It's next to impossible, because to have kill dryers and all those things, you cannot, so if some of these things are going on, it would adversely affect our industry. Look, in the 8 years of the MPP, they did the PSIs, the Yensu starch factory and all that. What happened to the Yensu starch factory?
But that thing failed from, from beginning.
Well,
It couldn't take off.
Why? My point is that, you see, we are not putting the weight behind agriculture. You see, you hear politicians talk that, we've done the Commander Sugar Factory. We cannot do farming the way we are doing it in Ghana to expect us to be earning serious money from the farming. Farming in Ghana is a way of life. It's not to do business. And if we are to be serious as an agricultural country, we have to do farming to do business, not as a way of life.
Well, you see, you say that, but I mean, if you look at cocoa farms, there are very few people who have large cocoa farms. Everybody has 5 acre, 10 acre, 2 acre, 3 acre. But because they have a marketing board, they're able to sort of rally it all up. And I think if you have a different marketing board for different crops, you could gather and still make money, not necessarily clearing acres and acres.
It's not a question of a marketing board. There's the crux of Ghana's development lies in the belly of the NDPC. That's the crux of it. They are the ones who are supposed, and right now they've added economic planning to their mandate. Those are the ones who are supposed to give the strategic thinking as to how Ghana should move forward. And for me, there are two sides to it. There is the strategic thinking of being able to plan the economy. And there's the strategic thinking for energy on its own. We have no development plan for energy whatsoever. And I keep using this example. Go to Korea today. They have 20 years, they've put a 20-year national development plan in for energy alone, targeting where crude and power is going for the next 20 years. How they are going to invest in particular projects that would ensure that for the next 20 to 40 to 50 years, they have power. For the next 20 to 40, they've added value to crude. Do we have that here? And that is the first step. And it should be done in such a way that stakeholders, everybody who is a stakeholder, should be part and parcel of that strategic thinking. And once the strategic thinking is in place, there's continuity when there's change in government.
So I was just going to say that, should it be taken away and has its own, sort of board or whatever it is? Because once you leave it in the politicians...
What, NDPC?
No, energy. Should energy be taken away from politics where it has its own, board running on its own?
The civil servants are not helping us. Okay, I went to the Ministry of I went to the Ministry of Petroleum last week. In one of the director's office, I saw a document on the table, it's like a booklet. So I took it and I started reading it. This booklet was done somewhere in 2005. So the secretary was like, "Oh, this thing is old." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm just reading it." So I'm looking through it, and they have a table in there. It's a green booklet. They have it's like a statement policy of the ministry, and there's a table in there that tells you the weekly meetings or the bi-monthly meetings to review certain policies of the ministry. And would you believe that they have like a bi-monthly review of energy generation? Bi-monthly review of energy generation. Ask yourself how many people have read that document, or do they even believe in when they wrote that document? Wouldn't be where we are today. You see, the civil servants are not doing any as good. I blame the politicians, I blame the parliamentarians before. Now, the civil servants also have their same to blame. The politician, yes, because you see, the politician is he's a policy direction. I've worked in the ministry in 2001 in the Ministry of Tourism. When the minister comes in, he asks, what is going on in this ministry? The civil servant, the chief director in UK, he's called a permanent secretary. They are the ones in charge of the ministry. They are supposed to now sit the minister down and tell the minister the ongoing projects in the ministry. The minister will never tell you that, "Oh, rubbish, cancel these ones, let me now bring my own agenda." Why would he do that? If there are good programs that is ongoing in the ministry, every minister will support them. But the civil servant would put that document on the side, fold his arm, and wait and look at the minister. The minister will come in and say, "Okay, if there's nothing going on, this is what I want to do." He only looks at him and thinks, "Okay, 2 months, 2 years, 4 years, he'll be moved out." He goes out, somebody else comes in, the civil servant folds his arm. So they are not standing up for the ongoing projects in the ministry.
And that's the problem we have.
And I'm going to find out why just after the break, because you know something, as soon as you pick up a phone and you talk about something, be it education, energy, anything, you never get a PRO or the chief executive of any ministry speaking to you. Banks or minister springs up early in the morning, hasn't read the headlines or anything, starts talking to you, and then by 12 o'clock it turns out that everything he said wasn't true. We're going to come straight back after the break. Thank you very much for staying, talking to Kwame Jantua and Kwadwo Poku. And Kwame, what would be an ideal energy policy or direction for us as a country?
That's $1 million question you're asking me now.
What should you do? Build more dams, more thermals,
in terms of power, not petroleum, in terms of power.
You see, I was thinking that if you find the oil, that the oil is here, you could use it as collateral rather than actually digging it out. Because once Kwadwo knows I've got the oil there, you can go and borrow against it. If I don't pay, you come and take the oil. Indeed, pay back, and then at least you keep the oil there, and rather than digging out.
You know, one of the challenges we've had with power is the delay in the trouble. Because the amount of gas Ghana has, we won't be going through this challenge we're going through. But it all boils down to how can you have a gas infrastructure? And having that gas infrastructure, you also have a gas pipeline flowing from Nigeria right through to Takoradi. And you do not have a reverse flow ability to reverse gas from Metwabo to maybe Asogli in Tema. Why? Who was doing the thinking? Why is it that in all this time that the gas infrastructure was delayed, we weren't able to fix the generators at VRA so that when the gas was ready to come, it would flow. And now we are stuck because those generators that will take the gas are not working. Who is doing the strategic thinking? Nana, most of the things we are going through is lack of effective planning. Lack of effective planning ahead of time. Not immediately, not now, but ahead of time. So you see it coming, you plan towards it. You plan towards it. We are talking about Votain Basin today, that we have plans to start oil production onshore. Who is planning for that? In terms of the local content issues that are going to come up, who is planning for that? Do we find those in our laws today? So it's got to do with how we plan. And you see, the sad thing is that we have put political parties before country. We've put political parties before country. So a politician comes into power, he's thinking of how his political party is going to come back next time round. So we are looking for a leader who comes and says, look, I'm now leader of this country. I don't care whether I win tomorrow's election or 2020 election. I'm going to do the right thing. I am going to put Ghana first and make sure that all the brains that I can get to help Ghana build. And you see, after elections, we are not building a nation. We are building our political parties to win the next election. We need to be able to get to a point where we say, we are building Ghana, the nation. And sometimes I sit down and I ask myself, isn't it time for us to do union government? As the champion said. Because union government, we can get minds together and build this country for the next 10 to 15 years. Get the institutions in place. As Mr. Poku was saying, the institutions aren't working because the capacities that are required for them to work are not there. The wherewithal for the institutions to be able to move forward is not there. And so you ask yourself, Kufuor has come into power, NDC is in power. What has happened to all the money that we have got from our natural resources? Where's all the money? That we have institutions that don't even have the capacity to be able to train human resource to get things moving?
Because just like the Swedes did. The first oil block, within 3 years, I think we were one of the fastest in the world.
3 years.
3 years.
And we are now chasing the industry.
So should we put a hold on the rest and build capacity to a point before we go back in? And is there any way we can also, save up and get one block for ourselves, or should everything be sold to somebody?
No, you see, right now, I think we are in a sinking sand, okay? We are trying to resolve today's problem. So we are trying to resolve yesterday's problem today, okay? And we, like Mr. Jantua said, we are not looking at tomorrow's problem. And you see, it's not easy to resolve yesterday's problem, because whilst you are resolving yesterday's problem, by the time you now get to the end of it, today's problem is there and tomorrow's problem has catch up with you. So we found ourselves in that problem. For the production and exploration side of things, I think so far the only thing that's a bit lacking is the local content, which we have not really fully seen the benefits, because the foreign companies has found a loophole around coming in, registering a company, getting Kofi or Ama to be directors, and then they are happy to take a small amount of money. So those are the things. I think I've constantly said that we should go the Gabon or the Sanongo way, which is Angola. Not only do you have to have a director as a Ghanaian, we need to have 40% or a certain percentage own share, okay, whether paid or unpaid. Then once you now make the revenue, you now deduct the profit you would have otherwise given the person, so that his shares now become paid up shares. I think those are the areas that we should look at. In terms of the oil block, I think Ghana, GMPC becoming an NOC should invest its money in trying to deepen exploration, doing spec surveys, 2D and 3D seismic where possible, try to venture off into deep offshore to now look at resources there, because what we have now will not last the next 15 years. The oil prices are dropping. What a lot of people don't know is that every rig has a cap price at which that rig cannot function. So let's say the Osei badge is there. They have calculated that at $35, I'm just using the figure. Let's say at $35, the rig will start making a loss. Okay, the FPSO, yes, the FPSO. If it has to be producing oil at a certain price for it to start making profit, the production partners will not let it go past a certain price.
Because of our crude being light, probably the production cost is quite low.
It's low, but the point is that it can only go past a certain amount, and that's why the OPEC is not coming to interfere. What OPEC is banking on is that when the price keeps dropping, certain rigs or certain wells will stop operating because the price is too low for them to operate. Okay. That will now take a lot of the crude from the system and will balance out, and the price will start find its level and start rising again. So in terms of that area will take care of itself. Our power situation in Ghana, the planning really is not to try and think big. Okay, people are talking about coal, people are talking about nuclear. All those things are big. Like Mr. Jantua said, they are long-term decisions. Short-term, okay, the power plants in the Volta River Authority, the TICO, the TAPCOs, all those ones. How do we make sure that every 8,000 hours, if it needs maintenance, we maintain them, okay? Every problem that it comes up, if there's a part that is needed, elevate it to a high priority. Don't just place an order and hoping that the GE guy in Germany will do your order for you tomorrow. That order can sit there for 2 years and 1 month and nobody cares. Make sure it is followed up. That's why one of the ministers came and said that the engineers at VRA were not fit for purpose, and he got a backlash. You see, sometimes you could say something and say it in the wrong way, and because you're a politician, you're not supposed to say certain things. But sometimes there's a truth in certain things. Most of the problems that we are facing, the engineers are a bit lackadaisical about the way they go about their things. If there's a part, Asogli, I'll give you an example. The Asogli plant went down, and they called him. Yes, they called him. He was able to give a time when the part will be flown in and when his plant will be operational. Because he's a private man making money, he has a timeline in when his part will be flown in, not shipped, flown in, and when his plant will start working. You ask the VRA people when the part will come in, they will give you 10,000 words and they will not pinpoint when it's coming in because it's government institution. So those are some of the things that we need to do. Let's not look at big things to solve the little problems that we have. I think if we concentrate, the Bew and the Volta and the Pong, that we have to pray for rain. That one, there's nothing we can do. But the thermal plant, let's make sure that we do the maintenance that we're supposed to do. like Mr. Johnson said again, there is no reversional flow from Takrady to Asogli. So now, if the West African gas pipeline is not coming, you cannot even send the Atubwa gas to Asogli. It is now that they are planning those things. Would you believe that when the Osajefo barge was sitting somewhere in Afaso or whatever, the West African gas pipeline did not extend to the point where the Osajefo barge was sitting? So they have to relocate it back. Somebody somewhere decided that the West African gas pipeline should not go so far. It should end at a point. Some of these things are the institutional failures that we have that is causing the problems that we have today. So to me, if you ask that what would be the way forward to resolve some of these problems, the plan. Make sure that we stick to the maintenance of the machinery that we have before we start promising 1,000 megawatts, okay, from a ship that we don't know when it's going to come. Please resolve and maintain what we have so that at least it would reduce some of the problems that we have.
But most importantly, Tor. Most importantly, Tor. Why do I say that? If Tor was producing, would we not have light crude oil for the thermal plants? Our own. Would we not have it? So the refinery midstream is so important. But we've left that bit. The refinery is key because apart from even refining only Ghana's oil, look, the whole of West Africa is full of oil and gas. Equatorial Guinea is there, Gabon is there, Liberia will start, Sierra Leone will start. Would we not be able to refine for other countries too? Landlocked countries in West Africa, we will not be able to refine for them too. So that is key. The refinery is key. And it would also help our downstream, MPA, and our need, our demand for refined petroleum products in terms of our diesels and our petrols. Very important.
That's all time will allow us. You know, this kind of conversation is one of those ones that you could do easily 2-3 hours and get a good education. I've learned a lot about energy today. But those of you who follow That's My Opinion Thursdays on Joy FM, tomorrow we are looking at the state of our development. And that arises from last week because there were lots of people who were bashing me that, oh, you are not seeing the development in this country. So tomorrow we're actually going to look at the development in the country and then we judge for ourselves whether we're going backwards or if we're going forward. Very interesting piece that you don't want to miss. But I want to say thank you very much to Kwame and Kojo. It's been an education. Folks, tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Don't move.